On my birthday, my daughter arrived unannounced and said, "Mom, get in the car. Just take your passport. We're not going back home." Her hands were trembling. Then she said, "If anyone asks, tell them you haven't seen Dad in months. Promise me." I panicked when I discovered why. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The morning of September 23rd, my 63rd birthday, began like any other day on our Vermont property. Quiet, predictable, safe. I stood at the kitchen window off the farmhouse I had bought with my inheritance 32 years ago, watching the mist curl off the pond beyond the apple orchard. The coffee maker gurgled behind me, and I was mentally planning a simple day. Maybe a walk, some reading. Perhaps Norman would remember to pick up a cake from town. I wasn't expecting visitors. Our daughter Judy lived 4 hours away in Boston with her husband Morgan, and our son David was stationed overseas with the Navy. Norman had left 2 days earlier for what he called a business conference in Albany, though at 67, and supposedly semi-retired from his accounting firm, these trips had become oddly frequent in recent months. The sound of tires on gravel made me turn from the window. A silver sedan I didn't recognize was speeding up our long driveway, creating a cloud of dust that caught the morning light. My heart did a small skip. Unexpected visitors always made me nervous, a remnant from my childhood when surprise meant trouble. But as the car skidded to a stop near the porch, I saw Judy climbing out of the driver's seat. Something was wrong. I knew it before I even opened the door. Judy moved with a jerky urgency I'd never seen in my normally composed daughter. She was a lawyer, trained to keep calm, to present a polished exterior. But the woman rushing toward my porch had wild eyes and hands that wouldn't stop moving. "Mom." She didn't hug me. She grabbed my shoulders. "Get in the car. Just take your passport. We're not going back home." The words hit me like cold water. "Judy, what?" "Mom, please." Her hands were trembling against my shoulders. "Trust me. Just get your passport. Nothing else. We need to leave right now." I stared at my daughter. Her blonde hair, usually neat in a professional bun, hung loose and uncombed. Her clothes, jeans and a wrinkled t-shirt, looked slept in. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. This wasn't my Judy. This was someone running from something. "Where's Morgan?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "Mom, where is your husband, Judy?" She released my shoulders and stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself despite the warmth of the September morning. "I don't know. Mom, I need you to listen to me very carefully." She glanced over her shoulder at the empty driveway, then back at me. "If anyone asks, anyone, Mom, you tell them you haven't seen Dad in months. Promise me." The world seemed to tilt slightly. "What?" "Promise me." Her voice cracked, and I saw tears she was fighting to hold back. "Please, Mom, just promise me and then I'll explain everything. But we have to go. Now." My mind raced through possibilities, each more frightening than the last. Norman missing, Judy terrified, some threat big enough to make my lawyer daughter, who'd argued cases before federal judges, look like a cornered animal. "Let me get my passport," I heard myself say. I moved through the house in a daze, climbing the stairs to our bedroom. My passport sat in the top drawer of my dresser, where it had been since our cruise to Alaska 3 years ago. My hands were shaking as I picked it up. Beside it was a photo of our family from David's college graduation, all of us smiling, normal, whole. I grabbed the passport and turned to leave, then stopped. Something made me glance at Norman's side of the room. His closet door stood slightly open. I walked over and pushed it wider. Half his clothes were gone. Not packed for a conference? Gone. Empty hangers. The gaps where his favorite jackets had hung. His good leather shoes, the ones he only wore for important occasions, missing. A chill ran through me. Norman hadn't gone to Albany for a conference. Norman had left. But Judy said I should tell people I hadn't seen him in months. Why would she say that unless... My phone buzzed in my pocket, making me jump. I pulled it out with trembling fingers. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Patterson, this is Detective Alan Wright with Vermont State Police. We need to speak with you about your husband, Norman Patterson." Please call me immediately. The phone nearly slipped from my hands. Police. State police. And Judy downstairs, frantic, telling me to lie about when I'd last seen my husband. What had Norman done? I stood frozen in the bedroom I'd shared with a man for 3 decades, suddenly realizing I might not know him at all. The morning light streaming through the windows seemed different now, exposing corners I'd never examined, casting shadows where I'd thought there was only familiarity. Another text buzzed through. This is urgent, Mrs. Patterson. Norman Patterson is wanted for questioning in connection with a serious matter. If he contacts you, do not engage. Call this number. My legs felt weak. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone. Wanted for questioning. Serious matter. Do not engage. Judy's voice drifted up from downstairs, sharp with panic. Mom, we need to go. I stood, legs wobbling, and made my way to the stairs. As I descended, I could see Judy pacing in the entryway, her phone pressed to her ear. I don't care what you think is best, she was saying to someone. She's my mother, and I'm getting her out of here before... She saw me and went silent, then whispered into the phone. I have to go. She ended the call. Judy. I held up my phone. The police just texted me. They're looking for your father. They say he's wanted for questioning. The color drained from Judy's face. They texted you? How did they get your number? It's not exactly secret. Judy, what is happening? She grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the door. We talk in the car. We have to assume they're already on their way here. Who's on their way? Everyone, Mom. Please. I will explain everything, but we have to move. I let her drag me out to the car, my mind spinning. As I climbed into the passenger seat, I looked back at the farmhouse. Our home, our safe place, the center of my world for 30 years. The morning mist had burned off, leaving everything sharp and clear in the sunlight. Beautiful and ordinary, and suddenly strange. Judy gunned the engine and we shot down the driveway, gravel spraying. Judy! Wait! She said, eyes locked on the rearview mirror. Just wait! We turned onto the main road, and she pressed the accelerator harder. The speedometer climbed to 70 on the winding country road. I gripped the door handle, watching my daughter's white knuckles on the steering wheel. After 10 minutes of silence and dangerous driving, she finally pulled into a gas station parking lot and killed the engine. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together in her lap. Mom, she said, staring straight ahead through the windshield. Dad's been stealing money. A lot of money. From his clients, from the firm, from everyone. The words hung in the air between us. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. It's over $18 million, Mom. Maybe more. The FBI is involved. They raided his office yesterday. They're going to freeze everything. All the accounts, the property, everything. That's why I came to get you. Because when they come for the house, for the assets, you can't be there. You need to be somewhere they can't find you until I can figure out how to protect you legally. $18 million. The number was so large it didn't seem real. I thought of our modest farmhouse, our used cars, the way Norman always said we needed to be careful with money. That's not possible, I whispered. We don't have that kind of money. We've never had... That's because he spent it, Mom. Or hid it. Or both. Judy finally looked at me, and her eyes were red. There's more. Dad's been running this scheme for at least 12 years. There are offshore accounts, shell companies, money laundering charges. Mom, he's facing 30 years in federal prison. The world kept tilting. 12 years. While I'd been tending the garden, hosting Thanksgiving dinners, believing we were living a simple, honest life, my husband had been... Where is he? I asked. Judy's jaw tightened. I don't know. Nobody knows. He disappeared the day before the raid. His lawyers say he's not responding to calls. The FBI thinks he ran. And you want me to say I haven't seen him in months. So it looks like we were separated. So it looks like I didn't know. Because you didn't know, Mom. Judy grabbed my hand. You didn't know. But that won't matter if you're living in his house, using his money, benefiting from his crimes. They'll freeze everything. They'll take the farm. They'll assume you were complicit or at least aware. I need to get you somewhere safe, establish a timeline that shows separation, And then I can start working on protecting your interests. I pulled my hand away. Judy, I can't just run away. If the police want to talk to me. Mom, please. Her voice broke. You don't understand how bad this is. It's not just Dad's clients. It's pension funds, retirement accounts. There are people who lost everything. There's going to be media, protesters, maybe even threats. The attorney representing the victims group already called me. He knows you exist. He knows about the farm. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Detective Wright. Mrs. Patterson, I'm en route to your residence. I expect to arrive within the hour. Please remain there. I showed Judy the message. She read it and her face went pale. We're 20 minutes away from home, she said. We need to keep driving. Judy, I'm not running from the police. You're not running from them. You're taking a pre-planned trip to visit your daughter for your birthday. That's all. There's no law against leaving your house. And when they call, you'll cooperate fully. But you'll do it after I've had time to set up proper legal protection for you. I looked at my daughter, this woman I'd raised, who was now trying to protect me from a nightmare I didn't fully understand. Behind us, back toward the farm, my old life was waiting. Ahead was only uncertainty. Please, Mom, Judy whispered. Please trust me. I thought about Norman's empty closet, the detective's urgent texts, $18 million, 12 years of lies. Drive, I said quietly. Judy's eyes filled with tears, but she started the engine. As we pulled back onto the road, heading east away from Vermont, away from my home, I realized with cold certainty that everything I thought I knew about my life had been a carefully constructed fiction. And the truth, whatever it was going to be so much worse than I could imagine. My phone buzzed one more time. I looked down at a new message, from a number I didn't recognize. Rose, you need to know the truth about what your daughter has done. She's not protecting you. She's protecting herself. Call me before it's too late. M. I stared at the message, ice flooding my veins. Monsieur Morgan, Judy's husband, who had taken Judy's hyphenated surname after their marriage. I looked at my daughter, driving with fierce concentration, her jaw set. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if I should be afraid of her. I didn't show Judy the text from Morgan. Something told me to keep it to myself, at least until I understood what was happening. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and stared out the window as Vermont rolled past. Farms and forests and small towns I'd driven through 1,000 times, now looking unfamiliar in the harsh morning light. Where are we going? I asked after 20 minutes of silence. New Hampshire. I rented a cabin under my maiden name. It's remote, no cameras, cash payment. We can stay there while I sort out the legal strategy. Her maiden name, cash payment. My daughter, who paid for everything with credit cards and kept meticulous records, was hiding us. The realization settled like lead in my stomach. Judy, I need you to tell me everything, from the beginning. She adjusted her grip on the steering wheel. I found out 3 days ago. Morgan came home and told me the FBI had contacted him. They wanted to know if I had any knowledge of Dad's business dealings. Why would they contact Morgan? Judy's jaw tightened. Because Morgan works for Hoffman and Brill Capital, one of the investment firms Dad used to move the money. They're investigating everyone connected to Dad's network. My chest constricted. Is Morgan in trouble? No, maybe. I don't know. She shook her head sharply. Morgan says he didn't know anything about it. He says his firm was used without their knowledge. But Mom, the FBI doesn't care what anyone says right now. They're building a case, and they're looking at everyone in Dad's orbit. Including you. Including me. She glanced at me, then back at the road. I'm Dad's daughter. I'm a lawyer. They're going to wonder if I helped him, if I knew, if I was involved in setting up any of the legal structures. My career could be destroyed even if I'm completely innocent. There it was, the truth beneath the panic. Judy wasn't just protecting me. She was protecting herself. Morgan's text echoed in my mind. She's protecting herself. So bringing me to this cabin, I said slowly, that's about establishing your innocence too. Showing that our family was fractured, that you were trying to help your victimized mother. Judy's hands tightened on the wheel, but she didn't deny it. It helps both of us, Mom. That doesn't make it wrong. I wanted to argue, but my phone buzzed again. I pulled it out carefully, angling it so Judy couldn't see the screen. Another text from Morgan. Rose, I know you're with Judy. She told me not to contact you. But you need to know. She's been meeting with Dad. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I followed her. She lied to me about where she was going. Ask her about the storage unit in Rutland. My blood went cold. I read the message twice, trying to make sense of it. Storage unit in Rutland. Judy meeting with Norman, 2 weeks ago. Mom? What is it? Judy's eyes flicked to my phone. Detective Wright again. I lied smoothly. Asking when I'll be available to talk. Don't respond yet. Let me draft something with proper legal language. You can't afford to say anything without counsel. I nodded and put the phone away, my mind racing. Morgan was telling me Judy had been meeting with Norman before any of this blew up, before the FBI raid, before everything fell apart, which meant Judy had known something was coming, maybe had known for weeks. The question was, what else did she know? We drove for another hour, Judy constantly checking the rearview mirror. Finally, we turned off the main highway onto a series of increasingly narrow roads that wound up into the forested hills of New Hampshire. The cabin, when we reached it, was exactly as she'd described. Remote, small, surrounded by pine trees with no other buildings in sight. Wait here, Judy said, getting out of the car. She walked around the property, checking windows and doors, moving like someone expecting trouble. When she finally waved me inside, I noticed she locked the door behind us and pulled the curtains closed. The cabin was sparse. 1 bedroom, a small kitchen, a living area with worn furniture. It smelled of pine cleaner and disuse. There's food in the fridge, Judy said, setting her bag on the counter. I stocked it yesterday. We should be fine here for a few days while I... Tell me about the storage unit in Rutland. The words hung in the air. Judy froze, her back to me. What? The storage unit, where you met with your father, 2 weeks ago. She turned slowly, and I saw the calculation in her eyes. The lawyer's assessment of what I knew versus what I was guessing. Who told you that? Does it matter? Morgan. Her voice went flat. He's been following me. That paranoid. She caught herself. Mom, whatever Morgan said, he's confused. He's scared and looking for someone to blame. So you didn't meet with Dad? She paused, choosing her words carefully. I went to Rutland for a client meeting. If Dad was there, it was a coincidence. I didn't speak to him. Judy. I kept my voice gentle but firm. Don't lie to me. Not now. Not about this. She stared at me for a long moment, and I watched my daughter decide how much truth to give me. Fine. Yes. I saw Dad. He called me 3 weeks ago, said he needed legal advice. Family matter, he said. I met him at a storage facility because he said he couldn't risk being seen at his office or our house. And he told me he was in trouble, that there were financial irregularities that were going to come to light. He asked me to help him understand his legal options. My heart hammered. Did he tell you about the $18 million? He said the number was exaggerated, that it was accounting errors, misunderstandings. He said he could explain everything if he just had time. Judy's voice cracked slightly. Mom, he's my father. He was asking for help. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to tell someone, the authorities. Me. I know that now. She pressed her hands to her face. I know, okay? But at the time, I thought maybe he was right. Maybe it was some kind of mistake that would get cleared up. I thought I was protecting him from false accusations. And the storage unit, what was in it? Judy's eyes slid away from mine. I don't know. He didn't show me. We talked in his car in the parking lot. She was lying. I could see it in the way she wouldn't meet my gaze, the way her hand moved to touch her throat, a tell she'd had since childhood when she wasn't telling the full truth. Before I could press further, both our phones buzzed simultaneously. Judy grabbed hers first, and I watched the color drain from her face. What is it? She turned her phone toward me. A news alert. Federal investigation expands. Attorney Judy Patterson Mills under investigation for potential involvement in 18-er fraud case. No! Judy's voice was barely a whisper. No, 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 they can't. I didn't. My phone showed the same alert, along with a string of missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. As I scrolled through them, one name jumped out: Caldwell and Kane, LLP. I answered the call, putting it on speaker before Judy could stop me. Mrs. Patterson, this is Elaine Morell from Caldwell and Kane, LLP. I'm the managing partner. I need to speak with your daughter immediately regarding her employment status. Judy's face went white. This is Judy Patterson Mills. Ms. Patterson Mills. The voice went cold. As of this morning, you've been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the federal investigation. We've also been informed that you failed to disclose contact with Norman Patterson prior to the FBI raid, which violates firm policy. A disciplinary hearing is scheduled for Monday. Your access to firm systems has been revoked. You can't do this. Judy's voice shook. I have cases, clients. Your cases have been reassigned. Do not contact any firm clients or attempt to access firm materials. A formal letter is being sent to your residence. Any violation of these terms will result in immediate termination and potential legal action. The call ended. Judy stood frozen, staring at her phone. Then, with a sound somewhere between a sob and a scream, she hurled it across the room. It hit the wall and shattered. They can't do this, she said again, but her voice had no conviction. I've given them 8 years. I made partner. I've never... She looked at me, and I saw the same fear I'd seen in her eyes that morning. Mom, if I lose my license, if I'm disbarred, everything I've worked for... Judy. I moved toward her. We need to call Morgan. We need to... No! She backed away from me. Morgan is the one who told them. Don't you see? He reported me to my own firm. He's trying to distance himself, make it look like I was operating independently, like he had no idea what was happening. Or maybe he's trying to tell the truth. The truth? Judy laughed, a bitter sound. The truth is going to destroy all of us. Do you understand that? The FBI doesn't care about truth. They care about convictions. They want Dad, and if they can't find him, they'll settle for whoever's closest. That's me, Mom. I'm the one who met with him. I'm the one whose phone records will show calls. I'm the one who... She stopped abruptly, her hand flying to her mouth. Who what? I asked quietly. Judy shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Nothing. I just meant... My phone rang. Detective Wright. I answered it, my eyes locked on my daughter's face. Mrs. Patterson, this is Detective Alan Wright. I'm currently at your residence in Vermont. Where are you? I'm visiting my daughter in Boston for my birthday, Detective. Is there a problem? A pause. Ma'am, we have reason to believe that's not accurate. Your daughter's vehicle was tracked leaving Vermont this morning at high speed. We need to speak with both of you regarding Norman Patterson's whereabouts and your daughter's recent contact with him. Judy was shaking her head frantically, mouthing, no. Detective, I'm happy to cooperate, but I'll need to arrange legal counsel first. Is that acceptable? Another pause. Ma'am, I should inform you that we have a warrant to search your property. We're also in the process of obtaining warrants for bank records and communications. If you're in contact with Norman Patterson, I strongly advise you to encourage him to turn himself in. Fleeing will only make things worse for everyone involved. I understand. I'll be in touch. I ended the call and looked at Judy. They're searching the house. They're getting warrants. I know. Judy wiped her face with shaking hands. I expected that. It's fine. There's nothing there. Nothing. Nothing that connects me to Dad's crimes. Because I didn't commit any crimes, Mom. I swear to you. I wanted to believe her. But Morgan's texts, the storage unit, the way she kept lying about small details, it all added up to something. Something my daughter wasn't telling me. Judy, if there's anything else I need to know... A sound outside made us both freeze. A car engine, getting closer. Judy moved to the window and peered through a gap in the curtains. Her face went dead white. We have to go, she whispered. Right now. Who is it? I don't know. But no one should know about this cabin. No one. She grabbed her broken phone and her bag, then pulled me toward the back door. We slipped out into the pine forest behind the cabin just as I heard a car door slam out front. We ran. Branches tore at my clothes and face as Judy dragged me deeper into the woods. My lungs burned and my legs screamed, but fear kept me moving. Behind us, I heard voices. Men's voices, calling out, "Judy Patterson, we know you're here. We just want to talk." We crouched behind a fallen log. Judy's hand clamped over my mouth even though I wasn't making a sound. Through the trees, I could see two men in dark suits circling the cabin. One of them tried the front door, found it locked, then kicked it open. Not police. Police would have identified themselves, shown warrants. These men were something else. Judy pulled me further back, and we moved as quietly as possible away from the cabin, parallel to the road but hidden in the forest. After what felt like hours, but was probably 20 minutes, we reached a small country road. Judy flagged down a passing pickup truck, and to my amazement, the elderly driver stopped. "My mother and I got lost hiking," Judy said, her lawyer's charm back in place despite her disheveled appearance. "Could you give us a ride to the nearest town?" The man looked us over, two frightened women in the middle of nowhere, and nodded. "Get in." As we climbed into the truck bed, I glanced back toward the woods. In the distance, I could see smoke rising. The cabin was on fire. Judy saw it too. Her face showed no surprise, just a grim acceptance, as if she'd expected it all along. And that's when I finally understood. This wasn't just about Norman's crimes. This was about something much bigger. Something that had drawn dangerous people into our lives. People who burned buildings and hunted families through forests. And my daughter had led me straight into the center of it. The elderly farmer dropped us at a bus station in a town called Hillsborough. Judy gave him $40 from her wallet and thanked him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. As soon as his truck disappeared around the corner, she grabbed my arm and pulled me into the station restroom. "We need to change our appearance," she said, pulling items from her bag. A baseball cap, sunglasses, a scarf. She'd been prepared for this. She'd planned for us to run. "Judy, those men at the cabin, I don't know who they were." She was braiding her hair with quick, practiced movements. Could be reporters. Could be private investigators hired by Dad's victims. Could be... She stopped. Could be what? She met my eyes in the mirror. Could be people Dad owes money to. Real money. Not his clients' retirement funds. Different money. The implication hit me like ice water. "You're saying your father borrowed from criminals?" "I'm saying I don't know everything Dad was into. And until we do, we have to assume everyone is dangerous." She handed me the baseball cap. "Put this on. Keep your head down. We're taking a bus to Portland, Maine. From there, we'll figure out next steps. I'm not going anywhere until you tell me the truth. All of it." Judy's jaw clenched. "Mom, we don't have time." "Make time." I planted my feet. "Those men knew where to find us. You said nobody knew about that cabin, but someone did. Who told them, Judy?" She closed her eyes, and when she opened them, I saw something I'd never seen before in my confident, accomplished daughter. Genuine fear. "The storage unit in Rutland," she said quietly. "It wasn't the first time I met with Dad. There were other meetings. Over the past 6 months. My stomach dropped. 6 months? He came to me last spring. Said he had a problem, a business deal that went wrong, some regulatory issues. Asked me to help him set up some legal structures. Limited liability corporations, trusts. I thought it was normal estate planning stuff at first. But it wasn't. No." Judy's voice cracked. "By the time I realized what I was actually helping him do, hide assets, move money through shell companies, I was already implicated. If I reported him then, I'd be admitting my own involvement. I'd lose my license, probably face charges. So She swallowed hard. I kept helping him, and I kept hoping he'd stop, that he'd fix it somehow before anyone found out. The betrayal cut deeper than Norman's crimes ever could. My daughter, my brilliant, principled daughter, had become an accomplice, and she'd lied to me, to Morgan, to everyone. "So those men at the cabin," I said slowly. "They might be looking for the money Dad hid. Money you helped him hide." "Maybe." Judy grabbed my shoulders. "Mom, I know you're angry. I know I should have told you. But right now we need to survive. We can sort out morality later. Please." I pulled away from her. "Don't touch me." "Mom, you've been lying to me from the beginning." This whole thing about protecting me, it was about protecting yourself, making sure I'd back up whatever story you needed me to tell. That's not— She stopped, tears streaming down her face. Okay. Yes. Partly. But Mom, I am protecting you. If those men find us, if Dad's creditors, whoever they are, think we know where the money is. My phone buzzed. Another text from Morgan. Rose, I'm sorry to do this, but I'm filing for divorce from Judy. My lawyer advised me to establish legal separation immediately. The FBI has been to my office 3 times. They're going to arrest her, Rose. Maybe soon. You need to distance yourself from her before they tie you to her crimes. I showed Judy the message. She read it, and something in her face hardened. He's covering himself, she said coldly. Divorcing me makes him look innocent. The devoted husband who had no idea his wife was a criminal. Or maybe he's just scared, like any normal person would be. Normal people don't abandon their spouses at the first sign of trouble. Normal people don't help their fathers commit fraud. The words echoed in the small restroom. A woman at the sink gave us a startled look and hurried out. Judy and I stared at each other, the enormity of everything finally settling between us. You're right, Judy said quietly. You're right about all of it. I made terrible choices. I lied. I put you in danger. But Mom, please, I'm still your daughter, and I need help. I wanted to walk away, to call Detective Wright, tell him everything, and let the justice system sort it out. But looking at Judy's tear-streaked face, I saw the little girl who'd scraped her knee and run to me crying. The teenager who'd called me from college at midnight, homesick and scared. My child. Where's the money? I asked. Judy blinked. What? The money your father hid. You helped him set up the structures. You must know where some of it is. I don't. I swear. I set up the corporations, filed the paperwork. But Dad never told me where the actual money went. He kept that part to himself. Then what was in the storage unit? Judy hesitated, and I saw her weighing how much to reveal. Documents. Contracts. Account numbers, I think. Dad said he was keeping backup records somewhere safe. He showed me the unit but didn't let me see inside the actual locker. And you didn't tell the FBI this because the documents probably incriminate me too. They'd show my involvement in setting everything up. I closed my eyes, trying to think. We need to find those documents before anyone else does. What? No. Mom, that's insane. We need to run, hide, wait for this to what? Blow over? Judy, listen to yourself. The FBI is investigating you. Your husband is divorcing you. Dangerous men are hunting us. The only way out is through. We need to find those documents, figure out what your father was really doing, and use that information to protect ourselves. You want to go back to Vermont? To the storage unit? Mom, that's probably the first place they're watching. Then we need to be smarter than them. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. I have an idea. 20 minutes later, we were sitting in a coffee shop 2 blocks from the bus station, waiting. I'd made one phone call to my son David's best friend from high school, Tommy Reeves, who'd gone into private investigation work after leaving the military. I'd asked him to meet me, told him I needed help with a sensitive family matter, and promised to pay his going rate. He arrived in jeans and a worn jacket, looking nothing like the gangly teenager who used to eat dinner at our house every weekend. Time and military service had turned him into someone competent and careful. Mrs. Patterson. He slid into the booth across from us, his eyes taking in our disheveled appearance, the tension between Judy and me. I saw the news about your husband. I'm guessing that's what this is about. Tommy, I need you to access a storage unit in Rutland, Vermont. Number 43 at Secure Store on Route 7. I need to know what's inside. His eyebrows rose. You want me to break into a storage unit? I have reason to believe my husband stored important documents there. Documents that might help us understand what he was involved in. Mrs. Patterson, with respect, the FBI probably has that place under surveillance, and breaking in would be illegal. I'm the man's wife. Technically, I have as much right to his stored property as he does. That's not how the law works when there's an active federal investigation. He glanced at Judy. You're a lawyer. You know I'm right. Judy said nothing, just stared at her hands. Tommy leaned forward. Look, I want to help you. David was like a brother to me. But I can't. $50,000, I said. Both Judy and Tommy stared at me. What? Judy breathed. I have money set aside. Inheritance from my mother. It's in an account under just my name. $50,000, Tommy. If you can get into that unit and photograph everything inside without getting caught. Tommy whistled low. Mrs. Patterson, I don't think you understand how serious. I understand perfectly. My husband is wanted by the FBI. My daughter is under investigation. Men with unknown intentions are hunting us. And somewhere in that storage unit are answers that might save my family. So yes, I'm offering you $50,000 to break the law. Are you interested or not? He studied me for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call, speaking quietly to someone I couldn't hear. When he hung up, he nodded slowly. I know someone who can bypass the facility's security system, but we'll need a distraction, something to pull any surveillance away from that unit long enough for us to get in and out. What kind of distraction? The kind that makes the FBI think something bigger is happening somewhere else. He looked at Judy. You said there are other victims' assets frozen, right? Other properties connected to your father's fraud? Judy nodded slowly. His office building. A rental property in Burlington. A boat dock in Lake Champlain. Then we stage a break-in at one of those locations. Anonymous tip to the FBI that someone's trying to access evidence. Every agent within 50 miles converges on that site, and we have a window at the storage facility. It was risky, potentially illegal, and it might be the only chance we had. Do it, I said. Tommy made more calls while Judy and I sat in tense silence. I could feel her staring at me, probably wondering when her sensible, law-abiding mother had turned into someone willing to orchestrate federal crimes. Finally, Tommy hung up. It's set. Tomorrow night, midnight. There'll be a fire alarm at your husband's office building. Nothing dangerous, just enough smoke to trigger the system and require investigation. While the FBI is busy there, my associate and I will access the storage unit. I'll send you photos of everything inside. I'm coming with you, I said. Absolutely not. Tommy, I need to see those documents myself. I need to understand. Mrs. Patterson. His voice was firm but kind. If this goes wrong, if we get caught, I can claim I was hired by a third party without full knowledge of the situation. You and Judy can't. If you're physically present during a break-in, that's conspiracy. Federal conspiracy. You'd be looking at prison time. He's right, Mom, Judy said quietly. You should stay clear of this. I looked at my daughter, and something occurred to me. You knew about this plan already. Judy's eyes widened. What? Tommy didn't suggest the distraction idea randomly. And you knew exactly which properties to mention. You've been planning something like this. Maybe not with Tommy, but with someone. Mom, I don't know what you're... Don't lie to me anymore! I slammed my hand on the table, making both of them jump. I am tired of the lies, Judy. Whoever you really are, whatever you're really planning, just tell me the truth for once. Judy's facade cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but her voice when she spoke was steady. Fine. You want the truth? Dad contacted me 2 days before he disappeared. He told me everything. The real everything. Not just the fraud. The people he was working with. The money he was laundering for them. Organizations that don't forgive debts or tolerate mistakes. My blood went cold. What organizations? I don't know names. Dad wouldn't tell me. But he said if the FBI got close, if everything started to collapse, these people would come after him. After anyone connected to him. He said they'd want their money back, and they wouldn't care who they had to hurt to get it. And he told you where the money is. Judy nodded slowly. Some of it. Not all. But enough that if I could access it, I might be able to negotiate. Buy our safety. Give them what they want so they leave us alone. The puzzle pieces finally clicked together. The cabin in New Hampshire, not to hide from the FBI, but from these other people. The storage unit, not just documents, but account information. Judy's panic, not just about losing her career, but about losing her life. So you weren't protecting me at all, I said quietly. You were using me. You needed me to come with you so it would look like I was your scared, innocent mother. So anyone investigating would see you as a daughter helping her confused elderly parent, not a criminal partner planning to steal laundered money. Mom, And if those men at the cabin had caught us, you would have blamed me, said I was the one who knew where the money was. Bought yourself time while they… What? Tortured me for information? No. Judy grabbed my hands. No, Mom, I would never… I pulled away and stood up. Tommy, do what you need to do at the storage unit. Send me the photos, but whatever plan my daughter has, I'm not part of it anymore. Mom, please. Judy stood too, desperation in her voice. You don't understand. These people, they already know about you. They know about David. If I don't give them something, they'll come after our whole family. Then maybe you should have thought of that before you helped Dad hide their money. I walked out of the coffee shop, my hands shaking, my heart hammering. Behind me, I heard Judy calling my name, but I didn't stop. I made it 2 blocks before my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mrs. Patterson. The voice was male, accented. Russian or Eastern European, I couldn't tell. You've been very busy today. Running from police, planning break-ins. Very creative, but very foolish. I stopped walking, fear flooding through me. Who is this? Someone who knows exactly where you are right now. Someone who knows what your daughter is planning. And someone who knows your husband stole $23 million that belongs to us. $23 million. $5 million more than the FBI's estimate. I don't know where the money is, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But your daughter does. Or she thinks she does. Here is what will happen, Mrs. Patterson. You will help your daughter access whatever information is in that storage unit. You will help her find the money, and then you will deliver it all to us. In exchange, we will let you live. And if I refuse? A pause. Then, we know where your son is stationed. Naval base in Japan. Lieutenant David Patterson, correct? Very far from home. Very vulnerable. The threat was clear. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. Don't you dare! You have 72 hours, Mrs. Patterson. 72 hours to find our money. We will be in touch with delivery instructions. And Mrs. Patterson, if you contact the FBI, if you try to run again, if you do anything except exactly what we tell you, your son won't make it home for Christmas. The line went dead. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, people flowing around me, the autumn sun shining like it was just another day. But my world had just collapsed completely. These people knew about David. They could reach him anywhere. And I had 72 hours to find money I had no idea how to access, or my son would pay the price for my husband's crimes. I turned and walked back to the coffee shop. Judy and Tommy were still there, Judy crying, Tommy on his phone. They both looked up as I approached. We have a bigger problem, I said, and told them about the call. Tommy went pale. Mrs. Patterson, you need to contact the FBI right now. They can protect David. Can they? I looked at him. Can they really protect a soldier in Japan from people who have international reach? From people who found us in a cabin nobody should have known about? Judy wiped her eyes. What do you want to do, Mom? I sat down at the table and pulled out my phone, bringing up the photos I'd taken of Norman's closet that morning. Photos I'd barely looked at in the chaos since. I want to find the money, I said. All of it. I want to know every secret my husband was keeping. And then I want to figure out how to use that information to save my family. Mom, these people made a mistake, I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. They threatened my son. They think I'm some helpless old woman who'll do whatever they say out of fear. But they don't know that I've spent 40 years managing a household, running a farm, balancing books, and solving problems. They don't know that I learned long ago how to spot a lie, how to read people, how to survive. I looked at Tommy. Get into that storage unit. Get me everything. Photos, documents, anything you find. Then I looked at Judy. And you're going to tell me every single thing you know about your father's business. Every meeting, every conversation, every detail. Because we're not giving these people a penny. We're going to find the money, yes. But then we're going to use it as leverage to destroy them. Judy stared at me. Mom, that's insane. We can't. 72 hours, I said quietly. That's what they gave us. So, we better start using it. For the first time since that morning, since Judy had pulled up to my farmhouse with trembling hands and wild eyes, I felt something other than fear or confusion. I felt angry, and I felt dangerous, and I was done being anyone's victim. We moved to a motel outside Portland that Tommy deemed safe enough, a rundown place that took cash and didn't ask questions. Judy and I shared a room with peeling wallpaper and a heater that rattled, while Tommy took the room next door. For the first time since that morning, I had a moment to catch my breath and think. But thinking only made everything worse. I sat on the edge of one of the twin beds, staring at my phone. 18 missed calls from Detective Wright. 7 from numbers I didn't recognize. 3 voicemails from reporters asking for comment about my husband's victims and my daughter's involvement. The world was closing in, and I had 72 hours to find money that might not even exist. Judy emerged from the bathroom, her face scrubbed clean, looking younger and more vulnerable without makeup. She sat on the other bed, maintaining careful distance between us. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for everything, for lying, for using you, for—" "Don't." I held up a hand. "We don't have time for apologies. We have work to do." She nodded, swallowing hard. "What do you need from me?" "Start from the beginning. When did Dad first approach you about helping him?" Judy pulled her knees to her chest. "Last March. He showed up at my office unannounced, said he had a client who needed some corporate structures set up, asked if I could handle it quietly. I thought it was strange. He'd never asked me for professional help before, but I was flattered, honestly, my dad needing my expertise. The manipulation of it made me sick. Norman had known exactly how to play our daughter. What kind of structures? Limited liability companies in Delaware. 3 of them initially, then trusts in Nevada and Wyoming. He provided all the paperwork, just needed me to file everything properly and set up the registered agent services. And you didn't question why he needed shell companies? He said it was for estate planning, asset protection, legal ways to minimize tax exposure. It all sounded legitimate. She wiped at her eyes. By the time I realized the companies were being used to move money, large amounts from sources I couldn't identify, I'd already filed everything. My name was on the documents. If I reported him then, you'd be admitting you helped him commit fraud. Yes. Her voice broke. So I convinced myself maybe it wasn't fraud. Maybe it was just aggressive tax strategy. Maybe Dad knew something I didn't. I kept helping because stopping would mean facing what I'd done. I understood that kind of denial. I'd been practicing it myself for years, ignoring signs that Norman was keeping secrets, that our financial situation didn't quite add up. We'd lived modestly, but somehow he'd always had money for his business trips. How had I never questioned where it came from? "The storage unit," I said. "When you met him there 3 weeks ago. What exactly did he tell you?" Judy's hands twisted in her lap. "He said things were about to get complicated, that there'd been some accounting issues discovered at his firm. He needed me to know where he'd put certain backup documentation just in case. He showed me the storage facility, told me it was Unit 43, gave me a key." "You have a key?" She shook her head. "I lost it. Or it was stolen. I'm not sure which. It was on my keyring, and after one of my meetings with Morgan last week, it was gone. I thought I'd just misplaced it, but now you think Morgan took it. Maybe. Or someone else got to it. I don't know." She looked at me, fear clear in her eyes. "Mom, what if the storage unit is already empty? What if whoever took my key already cleaned it out?" It was a valid concern, but something told me Norman had been more careful than that. "Did your father seem worried when you met with him? Scared?" "No. That's what was strange. He seemed calm, almost peaceful, like he'd accepted whatever was coming." Judy frowned. "He told me not to worry. Said he had a plan, that everything would work out. He made me promise I'd look after you if anything happened to him." Those words hit me like a punch. Norman had known something was coming, had known he might disappear or worse. And he'd thought about me, worried about me, even while betraying me in the worst possible way. A knock at the door made us both jump. Tommy's voice. It's me. I let him in. He was carrying a laptop and a large envelope, his expression grim. We have a problem, he said, setting up the laptop on the small desk. I've been doing research into your husband's business connections. Mrs. Patterson, did you know Norman traveled to Eastern Europe 7 times in the past 2 years? What? No. He said those trips were domestic. Chicago, Denver, Atlanta. Tommy pulled up flight records on his screen. Prague, Bucharest, Sofia. He used his real passport, so these weren't secret trips exactly. But he definitely lied about the destinations. Judy leaned forward to look. Those cities. They're all major hubs for money laundering. Sofia especially. It's where a lot of Eastern European organized crime runs their financial operations. Exactly. Tommy clicked to another window. And look at the timing. Each trip corresponds with large wire transfers through the shell companies you set up, Judy. Money going out in smaller chunks right before he traveled, then larger sums coming back in through different routes after he returned. I felt sick. He was physically carrying money or picking up money, probably coordinating transfers, meeting with people who don't trust digital-only transactions. Tommy's jaw tightened. Mrs. Patterson, your husband wasn't just stealing from his clients. He was running a full-scale money laundering operation for what appears to be a Bulgarian crime syndicate. The room spun slightly. Bulgarian criminals. International money laundering. My husband, the man I'd shared a bed with for 32 years, was something out of a spy thriller. How much money are we talking about? I asked. Based on the transfers I can track, at least $40 million moved through these accounts over 18 months. Maybe more in cash transactions I can't see. 40 million. The number was incomprehensible. And the victims? His clients who lost their retirement funds? Collateral damage, Tommy said grimly. I don't think the Bulgarian syndicate cared where he got the money to launder, as long as he processed their funds and took his cut. Norman probably started by skimming from his clients to cover his fees and expenses, then got in too deep to stop. Judy made a small sound of distress. This is so much worse than I thought. Mom, if the FBI connects all of this, the FBI is the least of our problems, I said. Those men who called me, who threatened David, they're looking for their $40 million, and they think we know where it is. Tommy nodded. Which brings me to the other problem. I've been monitoring law enforcement channels. The FBI issued a warrant for your arrest, Judy. They're charging you with conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, and obstruction of justice. Judy went white. When? 2 hours ago. Your photo is being circulated to every police department in New England. They know you're with your mother, so they're looking for both of you. My phone buzzed. Detective Wright again. I declined the call, but immediately another came through from a different number. I let it go to voicemail, then played it on speaker. A woman's voice, crisp and authoritative. Mrs. Patterson, this is FBI Special Agent Catherine Reynolds. We have evidence that your daughter, Judy Patterson Mills, has contacted you and may be traveling with you. We need to bring both of you in for questioning immediately. Judy is facing serious federal charges. If you're harboring her, you could be charged with obstruction. Please contact me at this number within the next hour, or we'll have no choice but to treat you as a fugitive as well. The message ended. Judy looked like she might be sick. They can't really charge Mom with anything, she said, but her voice held no conviction. She didn't know. Doesn't matter, Tommy said. You're together. You're evading law enforcement. That's enough for obstruction charges. Mrs. Patterson, you need to separate from Judy. Turn yourself in, cooperate with the FBI, establish that you're innocent. No, I said firmly. That's exactly what everyone wants, for us to be divided, scared, making decisions in isolation. That's how they control us. Mom, he's right. Judy stood up, grabbing her jacket. I'll leave. I'll figure something out on my own. You call that FBI agent, tell her I ran off and you don't know where I went. Sit down, Judy. Mom, sit down. I used my mother voice, the one that had commanded respect when she was a teenager. To my surprise, she sat. I turned to Tommy. Can you still get into the storage unit tomorrow night? Yes. But Mrs. Patterson, if you're wanted by the FBI, They're looking for us together. They won't expect us to be executing a break-in at a storage facility in Vermont while they're searching motels in Maine. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. I'm transferring the $50,000 to your account now from my inheritance-only account. Traceable, yes, but still unfrozen and solely in my name. Get me those documents. Tommy hesitated, then nodded. All right, but after I send you the photos, I'm done. I can't be involved beyond that point. I have my own family to protect. Understood. After Tommy left, Judy and I sat in silence. Finally, she spoke. Why are you doing this? You could save yourself. Tell the FBI everything. Give them me. Walk away clean. Because you're my daughter. Because David is my son. Because those criminals threatened my family. I met her eyes. And because I'm starting to think your father had a plan, and we need to figure out what it was. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and opened the photos of Norman's closet that I'd taken that morning. Look at this. Half his clothes are gone, but look at what he left behind. Judy leaned in, studying the images. I don't understand. It's just empty hangers. Look closer. What kind of clothes did he take? She scrolled through the photos. Casual clothes, jeans, t-shirts, sneakers. He left behind all his suits, his dress shoes, his... She stopped, her eyes widening. He left behind everything expensive. Everything that would identify him as Norman Patterson, successful accountant. Exactly. He was preparing to disappear completely. Start over as someone else. Someone ordinary. I swiped to another photo. And look at this. His wedding ring on the dresser. Your father never took off that ring. Not once in 32 years. Judy's hand went to her mouth. He was saying goodbye. He knew this was coming. Maybe not the exact timing, but he knew eventually everything would collapse. So he prepared. The storage unit isn't just backup documentation, Judy. It's a roadmap. Instructions for what to do after he disappeared. Instructions for who? For you? Maybe. Or for both of us. I thought about the calm way Norman had told Judy to look after me. The peaceful acceptance she'd described. Your father wasn't stupid. Reckless, criminal, dishonest. Yes, but not stupid. He wouldn't have gotten involved with Bulgarian criminals without having an exit strategy. So you think the storage unit contains... what? Money? Passports? Evidence we can use? I think it contains whatever Norman thought we'd need to survive after he was gone. I stood up and paced the small room. The question is whether we can get to it before everyone else does. My phone buzzed again. Another unfamiliar number. This time, I answered. Mrs. Patterson. The same accented voice from before. Have you had time to reconsider your situation? I'm working on finding your money, I said, keeping my voice steady. But I need more time. 72 hours isn't enough. 72 hours is what you have. The clock is ticking, Mrs. Patterson. 68 hours now. I need to know something. How did you find us at the cabin in New Hampshire? How did you know we were there? A pause. Then, surprisingly, an answer. Your daughter's husband, Morgan Patterson Mills. He has been very cooperative. My blood went cold. Morgan is working with you? Morgan is trying to save himself. He told us about the cabin, about Judy's plans, about the storage unit. Very helpful man. Unfortunately for him, not helpful enough to earn our mercy. What does that mean? It means Morgan Patterson Mills had an unfortunate accident this evening. Fell down the stairs in his apartment building. Broke his neck. Very tragic. The line went dead. I stood frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear, as the words registered. Morgan. Dead. Murdered by these people who now expected me to find their money. Mom! Judy's voice sounded far away. Mom, what's wrong? Who was that? I turned to look at my daughter, and I saw the moment she read the truth in my face. No, she whispered. No, please tell me. Morgan is dead. They killed him, Judy. They killed your husband because he couldn't give them what they wanted. Judy made a sound like a wounded animal. She collapsed back onto the bed, her whole body shaking with silent sobs. I moved to sit beside her, put my arm around her shoulders. Whatever anger I felt toward her, whatever betrayal, in that moment, she was just my daughter, and she was breaking. We sat like that for a long time, while outside the sun set and the motel parking lot filled with shadows. When Judy finally spoke, her voice was hollow. They'll kill us too. When they realize we can't find the money, or when we try to give it to the FBI instead, they'll kill us just like they killed Morgan. Maybe, I said. Or maybe we figure out what your father was really planning, and we turn this whole situation around. How? We're wanted by the FBI. We're being hunted by criminals. We have no allies, no resources. We have each other. We have Tommy getting us information. And we have something those Bulgarian criminals don't know about. What's that? I pulled out my phone and opened a document I'd found in my email while Judy was in the bathroom. An email from Norman, sent 3 weeks ago with the subject line, Life Insurance Policy Update. I'd ignored it at the time, thinking it was just routine paperwork. But reading it now, in light of everything else, I saw it differently. Your father took out a $5 million life insurance policy in January, made you and David equal beneficiaries. But here's the interesting part. There's a clause stating the policy pays out if he's declared legally dead after 7 years of disappearance. No body needed. Judy looked at me, confusion and horror mixing on her face. He was planning to disappear permanently, to be declared dead, and leave us $5 million. As compensation for what he'd done, as protection money. I scrolled through the policy details. And look at the insurance company, Baltic Life and Trust, headquartered in Estonia. Judy, your father bought a life insurance policy through an Eastern European company. That's not random. You think the policy is connected to the criminals? I think the policy is a message. $5 million, payable after 7 years, but maybe accessible sooner under the right circumstances. Maybe if we can prove Norman is dead or presumed dead, we can access that money now. But he's not dead. He's just missing. Is he? I met her eyes. Those criminals are looking for $40 million. They killed Morgan just for not having information. What do you think they did to your father if they caught him? The implications settled over us like a heavy blanket. Norman might actually be dead. The FBI might never find him. And his life insurance policy, purchased through what was probably a front company for the Bulgarian syndicate, might be our only leverage. We need proof, Judy said slowly, the lawyer in her emerging through the grief. If we can prove Dad is dead, we can claim the policy. And if we can claim the policy, we can use that money as bait. Tell the criminals we have $5 million of their $40 million, offer it as a down payment while we search for the rest. Would $5 million be enough to buy our safety? Maybe, maybe not. But it buys us time, and it makes us valuable enough to keep alive while we negotiate. A plan was forming, dangerous and desperate, but better than waiting to be caught or killed. We needed the documents from the storage unit. We needed proof of Norman's fate. And we needed to figure out how to play the FBI and the criminals against each other long enough to survive. My phone buzzed again. A text from Tommy. Distraction is set for tomorrow night at 11:45 p.m. FBI will be occupied for at least 30 minutes. Window starts at midnight. I'll send photos of everything I find by 1 a.m. latest. I showed Judy the message. She nodded, wiping her eyes. After we get those documents, what then? She asked. Then we find out what your father really wanted us to know, and we use it to end this. There was a knock at the door, hard, authoritative. A voice called out, FBI, open up, we know you're in there. Judy and I looked at each other in horror. They'd found us somehow. After everything, they'd tracked us down. But as I moved toward the door, I caught a glimpse through the window. 2 men in the parking lot, but no FBI vehicles. No fleet of cars, no tactical team, just 2 men in suits. Not FBI. Something else. I grabbed Judy's arm and pulled her toward the bathroom window. Go, now. Mom, I'll be right behind you. Go. The door crashed open as Judy disappeared through the bathroom window. I followed, my heart hammering, hearing shouts behind us as we dropped into the alley behind the motel. We ran into the darkness, leaving everything behind except our phones, and the knowledge that nowhere was safe anymore. And somewhere in the night, a clock was ticking down to our deadline. We spent the night in an abandoned warehouse Tommy directed us to, huddled in a corner with nothing but our phones and fear. Judy cried for Morgan, and I held her, wondering how many more people would die because of Norman's choices. By dawn, we looked like the fugitives we'd become, dirty, exhausted, desperate. Tommy arrived at 6 a.m. with coffee, clean clothes, and news. "The break-in is happening in 16 hours, he said, handing us the coffee. "But we have complications. The FBI has staked out the storage facility. 2 agents in an unmarked car across the street, rotating shifts." "Can you still get in?" I asked. "My associate can bypass their surveillance for the 30-minute window when they respond to the distraction. But Mrs. Patterson, you need to understand. If anything goes wrong, if the timing is off by even a minute, we're all going to federal prison. Then nothing can go wrong." I sipped the coffee, feeling its warmth spread through me. "What about the men from last night? Did they find us?" Tommy's expression darkened. "They weren't FBI. I checked with my contacts. Those were private contractors, probably hired by the Bulgarian syndicate. They're searching every motel, gas station, and diner within 100 miles. You two need to stay hidden until tonight." Judy wrapped her arms around herself. "Tommy, even if we get the documents, even if we find evidence of where the money is, how does that help us? We give it to the criminals. They kill us anyway. We give it to the FBI. The criminals kill us for betraying them. We don't give it to anyone," I said quietly. Both of them looked at me. "We use it as leverage to force a confrontation on our terms, a meeting where we control the variables. You want to negotiate with Bulgarian mobsters?" Tommy stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "Mrs. Patterson, these people murdered your son-in-law. I know exactly what they are." I set down my coffee and pulled out my phone, opening the notes I'd been making through the sleepless night. "Which is why we're not going to negotiate with them directly. We're going to make them negotiate with each other." I explained my plan. It was risky, probably insane, but it was the only path I could see that didn't end with all of us dead or in prison. Tommy listened, his expression growing more alarmed. When I finished, he shook his head. "That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. It'll never work." "It has to work, because we're out of options and out of time." Judy looked at me with something like awe. "When did you become this person, Mom?" "When someone threatened my son." I met her eyes. "When I realized everyone I loved was in danger and nobody was going to save us except us." At midnight, we were positioned a block away from the storage facility in Rutland. Tommy and his associate, a wiry man named Victor, who specialized in security systems, were ready. Judy and I waited in a borrowed van, watching the security monitors Tommy had tapped into. "FBI agents in position," Tommy's voice crackled through our phones. "Distraction in 3, 2, 1. On the monitor, we saw smoke begin billowing from Norman's office building 4 blocks away. Within 90 seconds, both FBI agents received calls and peeled out of their surveillance position, racing toward what they thought was a major break-in at a crime scene. Tommy and Victor moved fast. They were inside the storage facility in under a minute, and at Unit 43 30 seconds after that. I watched through Tommy's body camera as he picked the lock. My key would have been easier, but Judy's stolen key meant we had to do this the hard way. The unit door rolled up. Inside was a single filing cabinet, a laptop computer, and a large envelope taped to the wall with Rose written on it in Norman's handwriting. My hands trembled as I watched Tommy grab the envelope and photograph everything else. The filing cabinet was full of documents, account statements, wire transfer records, names and addresses, photographs of men I didn't recognize. The laptop was password protected, but Victor was already working on it. 12 minutes, Tommy said. FBI will realize the distraction is fake soon. We need to move. They grabbed the laptop and as many documents as they could carry, then sealed the unit and ran. By the time the FBI agents returned to their surveillance position, Tommy and Victor were 3 blocks away, and Judy and I were driving the van toward our next destination. We met in a church parking lot, chosen because it had security cameras that would record everything that was about to happen. Tommy handed me the envelope with my name on it. Inside was a letter in Norman's handwriting, a thumb drive, and a photograph of me and the kids from 20 years ago. My hands shook as I read the letter. Rose, if you're reading this, everything has gone wrong. I'm either dead or running, and you're in danger because of what I've done. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to understand. It started small. A client asked me to move money offshore. Legal, or so I thought. But the client was connected to people who saw opportunity in a respectable American accountant with access to other people's money. They made me an offer. Help them launder their funds, take a percentage, and they'd ensure our family's safety and prosperity. I said no at first. But they showed me photographs of you at the grocery store, Judy at her office, David on base. They made it clear refusal wasn't an option. So I helped them. And then I was trapped. Every transaction made me more complicit, more valuable to them, more likely to be killed if I stopped. I took money from my clients to cover my tracks, to make the numbers work. I told myself I'd pay it back someday. I never did. The thumb drive contains everything: account numbers, passwords, contact information for their operation, $43 million in various accounts, along with evidence of their entire network. Enough to destroy their organization. But Rose, if you give this to the FBI, these people will kill you all before they're arrested. If you give it to the criminals, they'll kill you anyway once they have what they want. There's only one path that might save you. Use the information to expose them publicly. All of it, all at once, in a way that can't be suppressed or hidden. Send it to every news organization, every law enforcement agency, every government office simultaneously. Make it impossible for them to silence you without drawing more attention. The life insurance policy I took out will provide for you and the kids if I'm gone. It's through one of their front companies, but it's legal and binding. They can't touch it without exposing themselves. I know this is a terrible inheritance. Danger, fear, responsibility you never asked for. I'm sorry for all of it. But you're stronger than you know, Rose. You always have been. You just let me convince you otherwise for 30 years. Protect our children. Survive. And know that every choice I made, no matter how wrong, was an attempt to keep you safe. I love you. I'm sorry. Norman. I read it twice, tears streaming down my face. Judy read it over my shoulder, her breathing ragged. He was trying to protect us, she whispered. All of it. He thought he was protecting us. He was protecting himself, I said, my voice harder than I intended. And he dragged us all into his mess while convincing himself it was noble. Tommy was examining the thumb drive. Mrs. Patterson, if this really contains what he says, account information, network details, this could take down their entire operation. But your husband is right. The moment you expose this, you become the most dangerous people alive to them. They'll come after you with everything they have, which is why we're not going to do it the way Norman planned. I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. We're going to do something he never would have thought of. We're going to tell the truth. I hit record and began to speak. My name is Rose Patterson. I'm 63 years old, and my husband Norman Patterson is wanted by the FBI for stealing $18 million from his clients. But the real story is much worse. Norman was laundering money for a Bulgarian crime syndicate. Over $40 million. They forced him into it by threatening our family. When he tried to escape, they killed my son-in-law Morgan Patterson Mills earlier tonight. Now they're hunting me and my daughter Judy, demanding we find the money and give it to them, or they'll kill my son David, who's serving in the Navy in Japan. I held up the thumb drive to the camera. This drive contains all the evidence of their operation: accounts, names, contacts, everything. I'm standing in the parking lot of St. Mary's Church in Rutland, Vermont, at 1:47 a.m. on September 24th. By the time anyone sees this video, copies of this information will have been sent to the FBI, the Treasury Department, Interpol, and every major news organization in America. I'm doing this publicly, on camera, so these criminals will know they can't silence us without making themselves more visible. Judy stepped into the frame beside me. I'm Judy Patterson Mills, Rose's daughter. I helped my father set up the corporate structures he used in his money laundering scheme. I didn't know what I was doing at first, but I figured it out and kept helping him anyway. I'm prepared to plead guilty to conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction of justice. I'm turning myself into the FBI after this video is posted. She pulled out documents from Tommy's envelope. These are the wire transfer records showing the money trail. These photographs show the men who threatened us. And this, she held up the laptop, contains the communications my father had with the syndicate leaders. I looked directly into the camera. To the people who killed Morgan, you have $43 million scattered across these accounts. Take it and disappear. You're already exposed. Every law enforcement agency in the world will be hunting you. Your only chance is to take the money and run before it's frozen. To the FBI, I know my daughter committed crimes. I know she deserves to be punished. But she's also the victim of a father who manipulated her and criminals who threatened all of us. We're cooperating fully. We're giving you everything. And to anyone watching this who's being threatened, coerced, or forced into criminal activity by people who threaten your family, there's a way out. It's terrifying and it's risky, but silence and obedience will only make it worse. The truth, told loudly and publicly enough, can set you free. I ended the recording. Tommy stared at me. You're really going to post that everywhere? Not yet. First, we're going to send a copy to the criminals and make them an offer. I pulled up the phone number that had called me. We give them the account information right now, tonight, in exchange for a guarantee that David is left alone. They get their money back. We get our safety. They'll never agree to that, Judy said. Once they have the account information, they don't know we've already copied everything to multiple secure locations with instructions to release it all if anything happens to us. I smiled grimly. Norman taught me one thing after 30 years of marriage. Always have leverage. I made the call. The accented voice answered immediately. Mrs. Patterson, you're cutting it close to your deadline. I have what you want. All the account information, all the passwords. $43 million. You can access it right now, tonight, and disappear before the FBI freezes the accounts. A pause. And what do you want in exchange? A guarantee that my son David is never touched. That my daughter and I are left alone. We're going to turn ourselves in to the FBI. We can't avoid that. But you get your money, and we get to live. How do I know you haven't already copied this information? That you won't still release it? You don't. But consider this. If you kill us, the information definitely gets released. We've already set that up. But if you take your money and disappear, why would we risk exposing you further? We'll be in FBI custody, facing charges. We just want to survive. Do we have a deal? Another long pause. Then, send me the account information. If it's accurate, if we can access the funds, you have your guarantee. But Mrs. Patterson, if you've lied, if this is a trap, your son dies first. Then you. Then your daughter. Understood? Understood. I ended the call and looked at Tommy. Send them the real account information. All of it. Are you insane? Judy grabbed my arm. Mom, once they have that, they have no reason to keep us alive. Yes, they do. Because in exactly 2 hours, at 4 a.m., that video we just recorded gets automatically posted to every platform I could think of. I set it up while you were both gathering the documents. The criminals will be too busy grabbing their money and running to bother with us. And the FBI will be too busy chasing them to focus on anything but our cooperation. Tommy's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and his eyes widened. The FBI just issued a statement. They're holding a press conference at 8 a.m. about major breaks in the Patterson case. Mrs. Patterson, I think they already know something. My stomach dropped. What could they know? Judy's face went pale. Mom, where's Dad right now? Really? The question hung in the air. I looked at my daughter and realized she'd figured out what I'd been suspecting for the past day. I think your father is dead, Judy. I think the criminals killed him when he tried to run, and that's why they're so desperate to find the money. He was the only one who knew where everything was hidden. But if he's dead, then the life insurance policy becomes payable. $5 million through their front company. Money they can't stop us from claiming without exposing themselves. I pulled up the insurance policy on my phone, and I filed the death claim yesterday. Stated that Norman had been missing for over 72 hours, showed evidence of threats against him, and requested an emergency evaluation of the claim given the circumstances. Judy stared at me. You've been planning this. Since when? Since the moment you picked me up from the farmhouse, I knew something was wrong. I knew Norman was in deeper than anyone was saying. So I started documenting everything, taking photos, recording conversations, filing paperwork. I may not be a lawyer or an investigator, but I've spent 40 years managing complex situations. This was just another problem to solve. Tommy was shaking his head in disbelief. Mrs. Patterson, you've been playing everyone. The criminals think you're a scared old woman. The FBI thinks you're a confused victim. But you've been building a case, creating leverage, setting up insurance policies. I've been protecting my family, I said simply, using the only weapons I have, patience, planning, and the fact that everyone underestimated me. My phone buzzed. A text from the accented voice. Account information verified. Funds are being transferred now. You've kept your end of the bargain. We'll keep ours. You won't hear from us again. I showed the message to Judy and Tommy. Relief and disbelief warred on their faces. It worked, Judy whispered. It actually worked. It's not over yet. I pulled up the video file, checking that it was queued to post at 4 a.m. In 2 hours, this goes public. By morning, every law enforcement agency will be mobilized. Judy, we need to be walking into an FBI office at exactly 8:01 a.m. with a lawyer, ready to cooperate fully. I know a lawyer, Tommy said. Someone who specializes in federal cooperation deals. I can have them meet you at the Boston FBI office. Judy grabbed my hands. Mom, they're going to charge me. I'm going to prison. Maybe. Or maybe the video, the cooperation, the evidence against the real criminals. Maybe it's enough for a plea deal. But Judy, either way, you have to face what you did. We both do. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. For all of it. I know. I pulled her into a hug. We'll get through this. As a family. Given the risk of retaliation before dawn, we moved the timeline up, and at 3:55 a.m., we were parked outside the Boston FBI office. At 3:58, my phone buzzed with notifications as the video began auto-posting to every platform. At 4 a.m. exactly, it went fully live. At 4:03, my phone started ringing. Detective Wright, I answered. Detective, I think we should talk. Mrs. Patterson, where are you? Sitting outside the FBI office in Boston with my daughter. We'd like to turn ourselves in and cooperate fully. Can you arrange that? A pause. Stay exactly where you are. Agents are coming out now. The call ended. Judy and I looked at each other, both terrified and strangely calm. Whatever happens next, I said. We tell the truth. All of it. No more lies, no more protection, just the truth. Even if it means prison? Even then. The FBI agents emerged from the building. 4 of them, hands on weapons but not drawn. I stepped out of the van with my hands visible, Judy beside me. I'm Rose Patterson, I said clearly. This is my daughter Judy. We're here to cooperate fully with your investigation. We have evidence on multiple devices. We've posted some of that evidence publicly as of 4 minutes ago to protect ourselves from retaliation. We're willing to testify, to provide everything we know, in exchange for protection and consideration of Judy's cooperation in any plea negotiations. The lead agent, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes, studied us for a long moment. Then she nodded. I'm Special Agent Catherine Reynolds. You're both under arrest. But let's talk. As they put us in handcuffs, gently, respectfully, I caught Judy's eye. She looked terrified but also somehow relieved. The truth was out. The secrets were exposed. And we were still alive. Whatever came next, we would face it together. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my Vermont farmhouse, watching snow fall over the apple orchard. The house was mine again. The FBI had released it after determining I'd had no knowledge of Norman's crimes and no access to the stolen funds. Everything he'd owned was gone, seized and liquidated to partially compensate his victims. But the house had been in my name alone, purchased with my inheritance before we'd married. It survived. I'd survived too, though some days that felt more like a curse than a blessing. The kettle whistled. I poured hot water over chamomile tea and carried 2 cups to the living room, where Judy sat on the couch with documents spread across the coffee table. She looked thinner than she had before all of this, older somehow despite being only 34. But she was alive, and she was free, mostly. Mom, you need to look at these. Judy held up a letter from the federal prosecutor's office. They're offering a final plea deal. I sat beside her and read through the legal language. After 6 months of negotiations, testimony, and cooperation, the government was willing to reduce Judy's charges significantly. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud with a recommended sentence of 18 months, suspended pending 3 years probation, community service, and permanent disbarment from practicing law. It means no prison time, Judy said quietly. If I testify at the trials of Dad's associates, I walk away with probation. And you can never practice law again. No. She set down the letter. But Mom, 18 months ago I was looking at 20 years. This is mercy I don't deserve. I squeezed her hand. You made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But you also helped bring down an entire criminal network. That counts for something. The video we'd posted that night had done exactly what I'd hoped. Within hours, law enforcement agencies across 3 continents had mobilized. The Bulgarian syndicate's accounts were frozen. 17 people were arrested in coordinated raids. And the evidence Judy and I provided, the documents from the storage unit, Norman's laptop, the detailed testimony, had been instrumental in building cases against all of them. But the cost had been steep. Morgan was still dead. Norman's body had been found 3 weeks after our surrender, dumped in a river in upstate New York. The coroner determined he'd been dead for at least 4 days before we'd even left Vermont, killed shortly after he'd set up the storage unit, probably by the same people who'd threatened us. His final act had been preparing that letter, knowing he wouldn't survive. I still didn't know how to feel about that. Anger at his choices, grief for the man I'd loved, betrayal at the secrets, gratitude that he'd tried, at the end, to give us a way out. All of it existed simultaneously, unresolved and maybe unresolvable. Are you going to accept the deal? I asked Judy. She nodded. My lawyer says I should. And honestly, Mom, I can't face a trial. I can't sit in a courtroom and hear them list everything I did, every choice I made that hurt people. The plea lets me accept responsibility quietly, then accept it. I sipped my tea. And then we figure out what comes next. What has come next? I can't practice law. Morgan is gone. My career, my marriage, everything I built, it's all destroyed. Her voice cracked. Who am I now? I looked at my daughter. This brilliant woman who'd been so certain of her path, so confident in her identity as a lawyer, a wife, a success. All of that was gone. But sitting here in the wreckage, I saw someone else emerging. Someone more honest, more humble, more real. You're someone who made terrible mistakes and survived them, I said. Someone who has the chance to build something new, something better. Like what? I don't know yet, but we have time to figure it out. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Landing at Burlington Airport at 6 p.m. Can't wait to see you both. My son was coming home. The Navy had granted him emergency leave after everything that happened, and he'd extended it to help us through the legal process. He'd been furious at first, at Norman, at Judy, at me for not telling him sooner, but slowly, over video calls and careful conversations, we'd rebuilt our relationship. Not back to what it was, but into something different. Something that acknowledged pain and betrayal and still chose connection. David lands tonight, I told Judy. She smiled, a real smile, the first I'd seen in weeks. I miss him. I miss having family that isn't complicated. All family is complicated, sweetheart. We just pretend otherwise until crisis forces honesty. She laughed, a short, bitter sound. I guess we had our crisis. And we're still here. I set down my tea and pulled her close. That's not nothing. Later that afternoon, I drove into town to pick up groceries. The stairs were fewer now than they'd been in October, when the news coverage was at its peak. Back then, I couldn't go anywhere without whispers, pointed fingers, occasionally hostile questions about how I could not have known. I'd learned to hold my head high and keep walking. What I'd known or not known was between me and my conscience. I'd spent 30 years trusting my husband, believing in the life we'd built. That trust had been misplaced, but it hadn't been criminal. The FBI had cleared me of any wrongdoing, and that would have to be enough for everyone else. At the grocery store, I ran into Nancy Martinez, an old friend from the garden club. She hesitated when she saw me, and I braced for awkwardness. But instead, she walked over and hugged me. "Rose, I've been meaning to call. How are you holding up?" The simple kindness brought tears to my eyes. Some days better than others. "I can't imagine what you've been through." Nancy squeezed my hand. "But I want you to know, the garden club would love to have you back. We've missed you. Even after everything? You didn't commit any crimes, Rose. Your husband did. Your daughter did. But you exposed criminals, cooperated with authorities, and protected your family. That takes courage." I hugged her again, overwhelmed by the unexpected grace. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Walking back to my car with groceries, I thought about Nancy's words. For 6 months, I'd been so focused on legal battles and survival that I hadn't considered what came after. But there would be an after. There was already an after. And I needed to decide what kind of life I wanted to build in it. That evening, Judy and I drove to the airport together. David spotted us immediately, still in uniform, taller and broader than I remembered, but with the same smile he'd had as a little boy. He grabbed us both in a fierce hug, and for a moment, everything else fell away. We were just a mother and her children, reunited despite everything that had tried to tear us apart. "I brought dinner," David said, hefting a bag from his favorite barbecue place near the base. "Figured we could eat at home, catch up properly." At the farmhouse, we sat around the kitchen table, the same table where we'd had countless family dinners over the years, the same table where Norman had sat and lied to us all for years. But tonight, there were only 3 of us, and for the first time in memory, we were completely honest with each other. "I've been thinking about leaving the Navy," David said, surprising both Judy and me. "My tour is up in 8 months, and I'm not sure I want to re-enlist." "But you love the Navy," I said. "I did. I do. But everything that happened, it made me realize how fragile life is, how quickly things can fall apart. Morgan is gone. Dad is gone. You two nearly—" He swallowed hard. "I want to be closer to family. What's left of it?" Judy reached across the table and gripped his hand. "We'd love that. But don't make that decision because of guilt or obligation. Make it because it's what you really want. It is what I want." He looked at me. "Mom, how would you feel about some company on this farm? I've been thinking about agriculture programs, maybe starting something sustainable here. Using the land the way you always wanted to but never had help with." My throat tightened. "David, this farm is yours and Judy's as much as it's mine. If you want to come home to build something here, I would love nothing more." We talked late into the night, making plans that were equal parts hopeful and uncertain. David would finish his tour, then come home and enroll in agricultural studies at the state university. Judy would accept the plea deal, serve her probation, and figure out what came next. Maybe teaching, maybe advocacy work for people caught up in white-collar crime, maybe something entirely different. And I would hold down the farmhouse, tend the property, and welcome my children home. It wasn't the life I'd imagined. It wasn't the future I'd planned. But it was real, and it was ours. And it was built on truth, instead of comfortable lies. 3 weeks later, I stood in a federal courtroom and watched Judy plead guilty. She was composed, articulate, accepting full responsibility for her actions. The judge was stern but fair, emphasizing that Judy's cooperation had been instrumental in dismantling a major criminal enterprise. The sentence was pronounced: 18 months suspended, 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, permanent disbarment. Judy accepted it with quiet dignity. As we left the courthouse, reporters shouted questions, but we walked past them without comment. We'd told our story. We had nothing left to prove. That night, the 3 of us, Judy, David, and I, stood in the farmhouse living room and raised glasses of apple cider in a toast. "To honesty," David said. "To family," Judy added. "To survival," I finished. "And to whatever comes next." We drank, And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not happiness, not yet, but peace. The acceptance that we'd been through hell and emerged changed but unbroken. The life insurance policy had paid out after Norman's body was found. $5 million, split between Judy and David as he'd specified. They'd both donated significant portions to a victims' compensation fund. Not enough to make anyone whole, but something. A gesture of restitution for harm they hadn't directly caused, but felt responsible for anyway. With what remained, David bought equipment for the farm. Judy set up a trust fund for any future children she might have, though she couldn't imagine that now. And I put some aside for emergencies, because I'd learned that catastrophes don't announce themselves. They arrive on ordinary mornings disguised as family members with trembling hands. Over the following months, the farm transformed. David threw himself into sustainable agriculture with the same intensity he'd brought to military service. He built greenhouses, started a composting system, began raising heritage breed chickens. The apple orchard, long neglected, was pruned and revitalized. By spring, the property hummed with life and purpose. Judy found work with a nonprofit that provided legal education to at-risk youth, not practicing law, but teaching others how the system worked, how to avoid the mistakes she'd made. She was good at it, bringing hard-won wisdom to kids who needed to hear from someone who understood consequence and redemption. And I discovered that I was good at beginning again. By spring, I was already learning to build a new life. I started a small business selling preserves and baked goods at the farmer's market. I rejoined the garden club and took on a leadership role in our community's food bank. I dated occasionally, nothing serious, but a reminder that romance wasn't dead just because trust had been broken. Most importantly, I learned to forgive myself for not knowing, for trusting when I should have questioned, for believing in a marriage that was built partially on lies. I learned that wisdom doesn't mean never making mistakes. It means surviving them, learning from them, and helping others do the same. 1 year after that terrible birthday when Judy had pulled up to my farmhouse, we gathered again. The three of us plus Tommy, who'd become something like family through everything we'd been through. We sat on the porch as the sun set over the orchard, autumn colors painting the trees gold and red. "I got a call from the federal prosecutor," Judy said. "The main trial starts next month. They want me to testify about how Dad set up the corporate structures." "Are you ready?" David asked. She nodded. "I think so. It'll be hard, but it's the last piece. After this, it's really over." "It's never really over," I said gently. "We'll carry this the rest of our lives. But it gets easier. The weight becomes familiar, manageable." Tommy raised his beer bottle. "To the strongest woman I know, Mrs. Patterson, who outplayed the FBI, the mob, and everyone else who underestimated her." I laughed. "I didn't outplay anyone. I just survived by being more patient and more stubborn than they expected. That's what wisdom is, Mom," Judy said. "Patience, perspective, the ability to see 10 steps ahead while everyone else is focused on the next move." I thought about that. About how I'd spent 30 years being dismissed as just a housewife, just a farmer's wife, just Norman's wife. About how that invisibility had become my greatest asset when everything fell apart. No one expected the 63-year-old woman to be strategic, to be planning, to be 3 steps ahead. They saw a confused victim, when really I was someone who'd spent decades managing complex systems, family dynamics, household finances, farm operations, community relationships. All those skills I'd developed in obscurity became the tools that saved us. "I think that's the real lesson in all of this," I said slowly. "Not that crime doesn't pay, or that truth wins in the end, but that the skills we develop in quiet, unnoticed ways, patience, planning, managing complex situations, those are the things that matter when crisis comes. Youth and aggression and brute force have their place, but wisdom and patience, those will save you when nothing else can." We sat in comfortable silence as the sun finished setting. Somewhere in the orchard, an owl called. The wind rustled through the apple trees. The farmhouse stood solid behind us, its windows glowing warm against the growing dark. I was 64 years old. My husband was dead. My daughter was a convicted felon. My old life was ashes. But I was here, surrounded by the children I'd protected, living in the home I'd saved, building a future I'd fought for. Some people might see that as tragedy, but I saw it as triumph, the quiet, unglamorous kind that comes from refusing to break when everything says you should. Inside the house, my phone buzzed with a message. I glanced at it, an email from the garden club, asking if I'd consider running for president next year. I smiled and set the phone down. I'd think about it tomorrow. Tonight, I would sit with my children on this porch, in this place we'd all bled to keep, and I would be grateful for wisdom hard-earned and battles fought with patience instead of weapons. Age wasn't weakness, experience wasn't obsolescence, and the quiet strength built over decades of seemingly ordinary life, that was the most powerful force of all. I'd learned that the hard way, but I'd learned it, and I would never forget. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.